Okay, so I figured I'd sit here for a few minutes and sew this on camera, you know, so you guys can kind of get an idea as to how I do it. I'm really not going to try to explain a whole lot because I just did, and I just figured maybe you guys could get an idea as to how I'm doing this just by watching the video, you know. And I just work my way on down there and always give it a pull and run that through the next hole. You just keep working at it. When you get done, it looks like it gives you a really nice stitch. Unless you run into a spot where you end up being too tight, but nope, you got it. Gotta watch. Sometimes you barely miss the hole and it makes it really hard to pull that next thread through, but you'll get it. And just remember, when you pull all that slack through there, give it a good tightening. And you're always going through the next hole with the needle on the same side as the thread came out. That's something to remember. Once you do it, you get the hang of it, it's not a big deal. But you'll notice that I'll push the needle through there, pull it out this side, and I'm pulling all my slack out this side too, without getting a knot in my thread. And then you notice I pulled all the slack out this side, and the same side I pulled all that thread out of, I go to the next hole and put my needle back through the opposite way. And then I pull all the slack out that side, and give it a nice tight pull. The same side that I pulled the thread out of, I drop down one hole and put the needle back through. And you just keep doing that till you get to the end. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the camera there and finish this up, and then when I get to the end, I'll show you how I tie it off. I don't know if it's the correct way, but it's the way I do it. So I'll be right back. Hi guys, I'm back. So I went ahead and I sewed the whole thing up, and I'm down to the last hole. Now if you remember, when we did the first hole, we started out on the inside of the sheath and came through the inside of the sheath with the needle and came out this first hole, and then we started going back and forth on the sheath. Well, now that we're down onto the other side, right here's our string coming out, and it came out from this side. Now that we're on the last hole, this is just the way it works out when you do it this way. But you come through the outside, through the last hole, and then up through the middle of the sheath this way. So you're only going through one side of the leather instead of both pieces. And then you come up like this. So then what you end up with is you end up with your tag end, and then you end up cutting this off, and you end up with two tag ends, which I'll do that right now. And you can cut it off a little long, no big deal, like so. So then you end up with two tag ends, and all I do is I tie a knot in them. I take the two ends and I tie a knot, and I pull it down, and I pull it as tight as I can, because this is basically you're tying off your very last stitches. So you pull it tight, and I usually throw three or four granny knots in this thing on top of each other, so that it does never come loose. And then after that, you got it all knotted up, everything's tight, you got all your knots in there, 3 or 4 granny knots, everything's tight. You have these two strings hanging out, and they're easy to get rid of. All you do is take your scissors, and I just take them and I cut them off, oh, relatively short. I can take them both together and cut them off relatively short. And you're still going to end up with a little bit of a tag end left, and that's where I just take that awl that I had and I take these threads and I just tuck them between the two pieces of leather, like so. And bring your leather up around them like that, and they're hidden forever. If they would ever come loose, all you have to do is tuck them back in again, but generally they don't. So now you got what is basically a stitched sheath, like so, with a couple rivets in it. So the next thing you want to do when you get to this point is, number one, I would definitely gently take my knife and check it. Don't shove it in too hard, because if you do, you could shove it right through your stitches. I'd shove it in. I usually put my fingers down here so that you could feel the blade. And like this is going to go in all about this far, and that's plenty good enough for me. So the next thing I'll do is I'll pull that back out, put the knife aside, and then I will get a pencil and I'll mark out where I want my rest of my rivets to go. So I'll go ahead and do that off camera, and you guys can do that to your sheath if you're making one. So then after you get all your holes marked, you go ahead and you snap them. I use a pair of these type. I also got a pair that you just set it down and you hit it with a hammer, whichever you like. I never get too fancy with these. It is what it is. I'm not really a perfectionist when it comes to leather work. I'm just looking for function. I gotta hand it to the guys out there that do leather work every day, because they do some very beautiful stuff that my stuff doesn't even compare to. But you know, and I see why they charge what they charge, because this is a lot of time. I mean, you know, I did this video in 20 minutes or so, but the reality is that I've been working on this thing for about 3 hours. So anyways, after you get those holes punched, then all I do is I put the rivets in it, and I grab my rivet setter, which contains this little bar here, and then there's a little round plug here. It's domed on one side. You keep the dome side up, and you grab a rivet, and put this back in the bag. You take your rivet and you throw it, don't throw it, but put it through the hole, like so. Put it through the hole on your sheath, and you take the top side and you put it over the top part of the hole. And sometimes it's a little tricky, you got to hold it a little bit. And then you take your your rivet setter, and you take the dome part and you leave this up. This is, I don't even know what they call this, probably an anvil of some kind, but you keep the dome part up and you set your thing on there, and then on this little puppy there's a dome part on it too, and you put the dome side down on top of your thing. Then you just take your hammer, you give it a couple good taps, and that's about it. You just set yourself a rivet. And I'm not going to go through setting every one of these, but that's how it's done. And you just go through and set a bunch of them, and sometimes it leaves a little line on the leather, but after a while it kind of goes away. No big deal. Like I said, it's function for me. So let me go ahead and set the rest of these, and I'll get back to you. Okay guys, so I went ahead and put all my rivets in, except for a couple more that I'm going to put in. And I went ahead and tried the knife, and it fits in there real nice. You just slide it in, and you can push that thing in about as far as it'll go, and it doesn't even come anywhere as close to hitting the rivets. So that's good. So now that I have that in there all the way, and I know where it's going to sit, I can decide where I want to put my slot for my belt. And since I had already left this part open for it, that's where it's going to end up going. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this out, and what I do is I'll take a punch and punch a hole at this end, punch a hole at this end, and then I'll draw 2 lines going connecting the 2 holes on each side of it, and then take my razor knife and cut that out, and that'll give me my slot. And then what I'll do is mark holes all the way around it, and sew around it too. But let me go ahead and do that real quick, and I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, so I went ahead and I put the 2 holes in it, just like here and here, and punched them out, and now I'll put a line on each side of this and cut the rest of the stock out of the middle. So I'll get right back to you. Okay guys, so now I got my slot in here, and I need to fancy it up a little bit, but it's no big deal. Now that the slot's in here, I'll go ahead and I will mark holes all the way around this slot so that I can stitch all the way around it too. And that'll be the next thing, is to stitch all the way around there. And then when I get done stitching all the way around here, I'll probably throw 3 rivets across the top of this, above the stitches. That way I don't have to worry about my knife hitting it. So let me go ahead and do that, and we'll get this thing finished up. Okay guys, so I have it sewed all the way around the slot now too. And how I did this, and you can see my 2 tag ends are coming out right here, 1 on each side. And how I did this is I stuck the needle between the 2 pieces of leather and came up through this first hole. And then I worked my way all the way around the square and then all the way back. And then I brought that needle on the very last stitch back through the 2 pieces of leather. So then I got my 2 tag ends sticking out here. So all I gotta do now is tie off the tag ends like I did up here on this end, and tuck them in, and they're done. And then I'm gonna just, all that's left now is to mark out 3 spots and put my rivets in for that. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that. When it's all done, I will show it to you with the knife in it, and you guys can get a good look. Oh, one other thing I gotta do yet is clean this slot up, but I'll probably do that whenever I get a chance. That's not a big deal. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay guys, so now for the last 3 holes, they're gonna go all the way into here on each one. 1, 2, 3. I got them marked out. And since my hand punches won't fit in all the way into here, I have to use a different kind of punch. And basically all this is you just set it on top of your hole, just like so, on a hard surface, and you basically just smack it with a hammer until you go through. And then pull it out, and you got it. And then you have a hole. No big deal. So I'll go ahead and do all 3 of these, and I'll get back to you. Okay guys, this knife sheath is all done now. It fits in there nice and snug. Ain't never going nowhere. It's gonna have to sit in here for a little bit so it kind of form fits itself, but once it gets to where it's nice and form fitted, you know, it'll be fine. I don't want to soak it down with water and form fit it that way, because I'll end up with a rusty old knife when I'm done. But you know, that's the way it's gonna be. Let me go ahead and I'll put it on real quick and show you what it looks like on, and then we'll call this a done video. Okay guys, so here it is all done, and it fits pretty good, and this is how it's worn. And you can stick it straight up and down if you want. You can move it this way, you can slide it around the front of you, you can slide it around the back of you. Of course, you gotta take your belt off if you want to put it all the way behind you. And when it's in the all the way behind you position, it's nice and out of the way. And if you want your knife, you just pull it out and you're good to go. So anyways, I just wanted to show you guys this thing and see how you liked it. And take this off real quick, show you guys how you liked it. Anyways, So this is going to conclude the knife video. Rebuilding a knife and making a new sheath for it. And I just wanted to say thank you, and hopefully you'll like this video or share it, subscribe. You know, we're gonna have a lot more videos like this on the way, so thanks a lot, and see you on the next video.